we'll just get started. So thank you for all coming out. Hopefully you all will get something out of this. After kind of each segment, we'll have time for questions. And my hope is that there'll be good discussions out of that. So before we get started, let me just pray for us and for this time. Father, I just thank you for bringing us all out on this Wednesday evening to just come together to have one vision for this team and to just be serving you. I just pray that we'll just have a good night with this, and that you would just give us all wisdom and understanding in the different gifts you've given us and with our gifts on camera. So again, I just thank you for tonight, and I just give it to you. It's in your name I pray. Amen. All right, so let's get started with the why behind we are doing this. First is to set a base standard for the video team. So this is kind of what we expect when it comes to how you're setting up your shots, operating your camera, and setting up your camera. We want to get everyone on the same page, achieving the same goals with our video. We've been doing those Wednesday night things, but sometimes someone's not on very often, like Alicia is on lights more than camera. So the point of this is just that, to get everyone who has been on camera and who is currently on camera just on the same page. And having a one-mindedness about this will help create a distraction-free worship environment. That's our main goal as camera operators and video directors, because obviously if there's distractions, they're not focusing on the worship or the sermon. They're focused on, oh, the camera just moved when they shouldn't have. Let's see. Getting to a better place with our composure and directing. We're doing great already, but this will hopefully get us to that next level with our videos on Sundays. Reintroducing and introducing some new concepts. So I'll go over some things that we've kind of gone over already on the Wednesday set. Like the time we've met in the tech lounge together. And then to just again have full team collaboration. We want video directors and camera operators to all have input. So camera operators, please don't be afraid of your video director. We want you asking questions about framing, telling us shots you want to try, and then asking us about composition. Hearing from camera operators will help us because you're the ones out there seeing the whole stage. So you're out here seeing the whole stage where video directors were behind those TVs. So just letting us know kind of what you're seeing if you want to try something at the appropriate times. Next is camera responsibility. So first one is constantly searching for shots. Always be searching for new shots. The way to get taken or cut to is consistently feeding the director shots unless directed otherwise. Once your camera is no longer live, find a new shot, zoom the camera out, find something new, and try to find it fast. The video director can only see what you as a camera operator have for a shot. So it's up to you to find the action and energy on the stage. Keep your camera in focus. That's one of your jobs as a camera operator is just, always make sure that your camera is in focus. Keeping your camera moving. The only static shots should be the ones that do not have an operator. So whether that's just kind of natural movement, we'll go over that a little more. Or, if you're panning up and down on wide shots, just trying to keep some movement. And then keeping standard framing. So like during preaching moments and like our mission moments, our generosity moments, having the right framing. and to get that as soon as you can. So like once we go into the generosity moment, and obviously we'll give camera to video directors the time to get to that shot, and then the other camera operators trying to set up your shots so that you can also be ready for the sermon. So now we will get into some terms that just want to go over again. So I have some picture and video examples. Some of them will come from a lookbook Andrew has made. It'll be in the binders. It's a resource you guys can reference. So if you're having a hard time maybe thinking of shots or whatnot, this is something you can use. And video directors also can use it to show examples, or instead of having to go out and maybe explain it or trying to explain it over comms, be like, yeah, could you just look at this page? This is kind of what I want for this shot. So the first is headroom. This is a space between the top of the subject's head and the top of the frame. So obviously we don't want too much headroom because it creates an awkward kind of space above whoever the subject is that you have framed, and we don't want too little because then their head's getting cut off. So here's just an example of an awkward kind of framing you can get. Whoop. Oh, sorry, 1 second. There we go. So it's a good shot. Lucy's hand is framed well. But you can see her hand comes down, and it leaves this kind of like really awkward space above her head. So a couple things to stay away from this is to, when she brings her hand down, to bring the frame down. That's okay in a moment like that to move your camera, because again, we just don't want that awkward spacing. And then the other thing is the video director probably could have cut off of it because it stays on this shot for another 4 seconds. So it probably should have been cut off already to whatever the next shot is. Next one is rule of thirds and lead room or looking room. The basic principle behind the rule of thirds is to imagine breaking an image down into thirds. So here's a picture example of that. So imagine you have this grid on your camera screens. So trying to frame them depending on how this shot is in those different thirds. So now you have 9 parts with this grid in mind. The rule of thirds now identifies 4 important parts of the image that you should consider placing points of interest in as you frame your image by looking through your viewfinder or your screen. Not only this, but it also gives you 4 lines that are also useful points for elements in your shot. The theory is that if you place points of interest in the intersections or along the lines that your shot becomes more balanced and will enable a viewer of the image to interact with it more naturally. Studies have shown that when viewing images, that people's eyes usually go to one of the intersection points most naturally rather than the center of the shot. Using the rule of thirds works with this natural way of viewing an image rather than working against it. So just imagine, and when we're going through video examples and stuff, just imagine this grid and thinking about, oh yeah, so that was a moment where they used rule of thirds, whether it be a 1 shot, 2 shot, 3 shot, and so on. So here's a video example of good framing. So Pablo's on that right third. So it's a good example of rule of thirds. And then the looking room also is used here. So let's go back to that. So you can see, looking room was the other thing I forgot to explain. So that's the amount of space in front of the subject when, whatever way they're facing or walking, whether it be left or right. So he's facing, so I think this is from camera 3. So he's facing this way. And so what you don't want to do is put him in the left third, because then there's just this empty space behind him, and that's what we want to try to avoid. So having this space in front of him kind of gives this shot some creativity rather than just framing him up in the center. I would argue it could probably go to the right side of the frame just a little more. But here's another example. She kind of moves in and out of it. But you can see there's this nice space in front of her when she kind of gets onto that right third.
The battle's won, your perfect love has crushed the enemy. Throw fear aside, you are alive, you won the victory.
And then there's times when it's okay to not have them on a third. And this is a good example of that when it's kind of a wider shot. I would say if it's below the waist, so almost like a thighs up, to center them up, because then it's almost too wide of a shot and you might catch someone else in the frame. Or there's just too much space behind them or in front of them. So if it's a thighs up, I would say frame them up in the center of your shot. Here's another video example. This one's really using rule of thirds and looking room, so you can see she's on that left third and she's looking that way, so you want the empty space in front of her. It also makes for that, she was putting her hand out worshiping, so it leaves room for that also. Not that you always need to have the hand in the frame when the worship leader is worshiping, but in a moment like that, that gave the opportunity for that. So this is kind of an awkward, this is where you kind of get that awkward, so when she kind of moves into that right third, there's just a ton of space in front of her. So I'd rather just have it framed up in the center, so it just has an even, good amount of room. Next, this isn't really a term, but this is something I really still want to try to get in, is just keeping some kind of movement with your camera, whether it be a natural movement or moving with the vocalist. If they're moving around, kind of just following their movement, because it keeps the energy of the song, and there's times when it's fine to not move, like if it's a slower song, but when there's a song with a lot of energy, sometimes when you're cutting around, some cameras might be, if they're close up, they're kind of following the singer, swaying or whatever. But then if you cut to a still shot, it kind of takes the energy. So here's an example of that. So you can see the camera's kind of moving with Bev. Then it cuts to this drum cam that's kind of moving. Then it just cuts to this still shot of Lucy. It's greatly framed, but and then there's some more movement here, just naturally. So it kind of takes you out of the moment, because it's just, I don't know if jarring is really the right word, but it's almost like abrupt. So, keeping some kind of movement, even if it's, just, you holding the camera. Obviously, we don't want a ton of movement, but it just keeps the energy going. Here's another example. So with this 3-shot, you could be, what I typically like to do when I'm on camera is thinking about keeping movement as seeing like, okay, so who's moving in this shot? So like Scott was kind of moving around, so maybe keeping my right side of the frame kind of next to him and then kind of moving it with him, and not a whole lot, but just enough that it kind of has some movement with it. So like if you imagine his movement with that, and this is an energetic song too. So again, you could be moving the left side of your frame now with Scott. So just keeping some movement. And then here's an example when it's fine to not. So, we're at a slow part of the song. Nobody's moving at all. So, it's okay to have a still shot like that. Because again, it's just a slow part. There's not a lot of energy really going on behind it. So it's fine to have those moments. Then movement in wide shots. This is something Andrew and I have talked about, is just having, a pan up or pan down whenever you're on a wide shot. And they can be, depending on who the video director is, it can vary, but usually wide shots, I would say, are probably 4 shots and 5 shots, or stage wides even. The only time you probably wouldn't want to do that is when it's a transition moment, like when we're transitioning between songs, unless the video director asks for it. So here's just an example of like when we could have moved. So this shot here, I would argue this is wide enough, even though it's a 3 shot. The way it's set up, I mean, you have some space on the left of Adam and on the right of Scott, and I think it's wide enough that we could have done a pan up, because in this, it's building up, and it's building, I think, into like a chorus or some kind of instrumental. Computer's freaking out. But yeah, so just having that movement as it was building would, I think, added a lot into it. And again, trying to portray the energy, because in the room, obviously you can feel the energy, but for the people online, it's hard to feel that. If we have the same energy in this room, I think it can make a difference. So here's another example of when we could have. So it's saying, I raise a hallelujah. And it goes to this shot, they're saying I raise a hallelujah, so it would have almost been like, a perfect time to pan your camera up, because, as it was cut to, you could have been raising it and raise a hallelujah. So, thinking about stuff like that also. So here's just some good framing. These are just some still shots, 1s, 2s, 3s, 4 shots. So again, when it's kind of a wider shot like this, it's fine to have them in the center, because again, it would just create a ton of awkward space in front of them. So if you're going for a wider single shot, just frame them up in the center. And here's just another good shot using the rule of thirds in the looking room. This is a shot I really like. I've seen this a couple times. Where you have, whoever the vocalist is, where Adam is, and then you have kind of Josh in the background. Sometimes you can catch Josh worshiping when it's a lower moment. So thinking about shots like that too, like what's going on the stage that I can capture. So like this past Sunday, I noticed there were times when Matt was worshiping and the camera that was on him was cut to. So moments like that are like perfect moments, and framing it up like this, you can see Josh, and that's just a shot I personally really like. And here's a 2 shot, again, imagining that grid, Adam's on that left line and Busy's on that right line in that grid. And the 3 shot, and again, imagining the grid, you have Adam on the left, Deuce on the right, and then Busy kind of in the center of that, of everything. And same thing with this one. And then with wide shots, this is just a great example. You have 5 vocalists getting the full stage. There are times when a shot like this won't look good, and we'll get into that in a little bit, because there is a shot that I have that I'll explain. Then here's just some stills of some awkward framing to avoid. So this one, I think it's a little too wide. I would push it in a little bit and just, you could do 2 things. So either pushing it in a little bit and getting just a 2 shot with Lucy and Scott, or pulling it out, because you can see part of Adam here is kind of cut off, and you have this kind of really awkward space on the side of Scott. So just either pulling it out so you get that 3 shot, or pushing it in so you get the 2 shot. And I would say for us who video direct, looking for that stuff too, and just kind of calling it out, like, oh, could you push it in a little bit or pull it out a little bit, just so that we don't have kind of this awkward framing. And again here, either pushing it in so it's a 1 shot of Lucy, or pulling it out so you get either 2 shot of who's on her left and right, and or pulling it out to get a 3-shot. And then this is something we want to try to avoid unless directed by the video director. Because, I mean, I guess you could consider this a 3-shot, but it's kind of awkward, and we have cameras, pointed at the musicians already. So unless the video director calls for it, then it's fine, but don't go seeking out these shots, because they can just kind of be weird sometimes. And then here is a wide shot, another one that we want to try to avoid. So like you see, this one's set up like that other wide shot was, but without having another vocalist there, you kind of have this weird empty space where, Deuce is over there, then there's a ton of space, and, they're not even on the front line. So the best way to set a shot up like this, if you don't have 5 vocalists and you're going for like a stage wide, would be to push it over to the right, or maybe get this shot from camera 1, camera 3, so that you have it coming this way. So again, with the looking room, pushing it over so that, because all the vocalists are looking that way, so it's creating this space behind them that's awkward. So, pushing it in a little bit and moving it to the right to create that looking room, and so that it doesn't have this kind of awkward space. And then just here's another example of that. So, I mean, I don't want to say that this shot is bad, but it's fine when there's 5 vocalists or more. But when there's 3 or 4, it can be sometimes an awkward shot. And then this is a new term and a new thing that we are introducing, is A-cam and B-cam. This will hopefully help. Well, actually, before I go into this, are there any questions about anything I've gone over? Anyone has, before I go into the next thing? No? Okay. So this is a new thing that we are introducing. So A-cam and B-cam is something the video directors will assign. So this is almost, this is similar to how we do it already. So, usually we'll say, camera 1, I want you getting these shots. Camera 2, I want you getting these shots. Camera 3, these shots. But now camera 1 and 3 will be assigned A-cam or B-cam, and then camera 2 will kind of have its own criteria of shots that they're getting. So this will hopefully help not have cameras getting a bunch of the same shots. Like, I think this past Sunday I noticed that one time, like, all the shots were on like one vocalist, and they were all like the same shot, like a tight shot. So this will hopefully kind of help avoid that. So what A-cam, when you assign A-cam, and this isn't in the lookbooks yet, but we'll get it in there, and I can explain it to video directors because we'll have time to practice this later tonight. But A-cam will be primarily focused on the lead vocalist. So 1 shot to the lead vocalist, 2 shots with the leader included, and if the singer is soloing, or if it's only the singer singing, getting a variety of 1 shots on that singer. So for example, getting like a chest up, then you get cut off of, and then pulling it out a little bit, so maybe you get like a waist up, and then you get, cut back to, cut off of, then pushing in all the way and getting just, maybe a face shot, stuff like that. B-cam will get 1 shots of non-lead vocalists, 2 shots that can include or not include the lead singer. Instrument shots, only if no fixed camera is on that instrument. Acoustic guitar shots when the lead vocalist is soloing. Include lead, if you're getting 3 shots, including lead vocals in those 3 shots and wider, using mainly 1 shots, 2 shots, or 3 shots. So B-cam will be assigned to mainly 1s, 2s, and 3s. And then the criteria for camera 2 will be 1 shot to the lead vocalist and other singers, 2 shots, 3 shots, and then full stage wides with big tilts at big music moments. So camera 2 will kind of be almost the everything in between camera. So does anyone have any questions about that? Just because I know that's a new thing that introducing. Yes, we'll have it in writing. So just some other terms to go over. These ones are kind of just general terms, but I just wanted to touch on them for a second. So just some camera directions from, the video director might call this out. Hold to stop camera movement, start, begin prescribed movement. So, if the video director says start a push or something like that, or start a movement, whatever it may be. Pan right, move the camera lens right. Pan left, move the camera lens left. Tilt up, tilt the camera up. Tilt down, tilt the camera down. Tighten up to zoom in slightly to tighten camera framing. Loosen up to zoom out slightly to loosen camera framing. Then frame the subject right, putting them on that right third. Frame the subject left, putting them on that left third. Centering up, obviously putting them in the center. And then just some composition ones, head to toe, framing the subject from head to toe. Knees up of head, knees up, framing the subject just below the knees to top of the head, waist up, from just below the belt or waistline. Because there has been times where if you get them below the waistline, then it doesn't create this weird kind of floating torso. Because sometimes, depending on how their shirt is, if you do just from belly up, it can look weird. Let's see, next one. So then we'll go into how to be prepared for a rehearsal. So this is something we kind of hope for, but understand that you guys have a life outside of serving on camera. But these are just some things to kind of help get prepared and able to come in and kind of give some collaboration. So listening to the set list on Frame.io. This is something that I'm creating a library of our worship songs from our own, from our Sundays. Because sometimes what you find on your phone might be different, because it might be a longer song, or it might be shorter. There might be something different versus how we do it. So listening to the songs at some point throughout the week. I'll send a link out to that playlist so that you guys go send. I know all 4 songs for that week will be the only thing in that, so you won't have to search for the songs. Another thing is taking a look at the stage plot. So Jake makes a stage plot every week, for those who might not know. So listening to, looking at that to get an idea of, because now that we're pre-assigning cameras, you can think, okay, I'll be on camera 1, thinking through shots. So on this song, so-and-so is leading, they're in this position. So probably from my position, it's best getting a 1 shot on them, kind of thing, thinking through that stuff. And then, again, that can go into the collaboration time. Hey, video director, I was thinking, this would be a good time for me to, be 1 shot, a cam, so that, because I think my shots would look best from my angles. And then all that together, just thinking about different shots, based on the songs, where the people are, and then, like I said, taking that time, taking it to the video director. And then this is what's expected after dinner and devotion. So this will be kind of the new time that we take for our sectional time. So going to the tech lounge to review the previous week's multi-view and listen to your video director for an overview of the night. I think this is something that all the video directors should do, is kind of an overview, kind of get what your thoughts are going into it. If you have a chance to listen to the songs and look at stuff for that week. getting your camera set up and making sure everything is good at your station. This is something that should be done before run through. Is just making sure that everything is good to go. Because what we don't want is there's an issue coming up and it's like 2 minutes to the countdown. We want to try to avoid that because it's happened in the past and it can sometimes all of a sudden create some stress that is not needed. Yeah, we can. I'll write that down, and we'll do some figure out a way to implement that best for sure. Because I also struggle with that too, where it's like you're trying to make adjustments, and it's like, is it all good? Yeah, certainly. So turning on your camera, this is just the order to do it in. I know most of you know this, but I just want to review it again. When you're turning it on, you start with turning the monitor on, then the actual camera, and then you open the shutter at the very front of the camera. And then when you're turning it off, you do it in the reverse order. So you close the shutter, then you turn the camera off, then the monitor off. When you do turn it off, make sure the shutter's closed for a couple seconds before you actually turn the camera off. Because if you don't, then it creates this flicker of whatever was left on stage, and some of the screens get left on in here. So just be nice to not have that. And then when it comes to setting up your camera, this is something that camera operators should be doing on their own, because it's your station, so to speak. So it's not something the video director should be doing unless there's like a big issue. Then it's like, hey, video director, my camera won't turn on. And then it's like, okay, then we'll help you with that. But just making sure it's right. So something that we can't do tonight, but will be implemented eventually is we're balancing the cameras. So Andrew had me order some weights for the different cameras. So this will help. Actually, it's on camera 1 right now. So for those of you on camera 1 are going to be lucky. But what it means is that when you completely loosen the camera in terms of like turning the the stop off, and you just let it go, it won't fall. It was so weird because it's set up on that camera, and I undid it because I didn't realize it was weighted, and it didn't fall forward or backwards. So hopefully this will help. Get smoother shots, up or down. When you're getting those pan up and pan down shots, you're not having to like keep your camera from falling, forward or falling up back towards you. It makes it so you can just let off and it will stay on its own. But I don't think it's something you really need to be messing with much because it shouldn't change week to week. Then making sure your exposure is set. Flipping out this screen, this is something you should do every time you go to turn your camera on. So this is a little screen kind of towards the front on the top of the camera. It flips up and then down. Just check that number says F4. If it does, don't touch the exposure ring. If it doesn't, then you have free will to touch it until you get it to F4. And then if it still seems off to the video director, that's when we can be like, hey, can you adjust it just a little more? And this is the exposure ring, just to go over it again. It's the smallest ring, and it's the one closest to you. So you just turn that until it says F4 if it's not already. Check your focus. So this is something that should, again, be done every time you turn your camera on. So check your exposure and check your focus. If there obviously is subjects up here to check your focus on, don't do it on band members. I've seen some camera operators do that. And the reason why is because they're not on the same space as the vocalists are. They're a little farther back. So, you might get it in focus, and the focus might look good when you're, on a wider shot with vocalists, but when you're on a tight shot, it might look out of focus because, it's more focused on the people behind them and not the vocalists. So I know it's kind of hard to do on a Sunday, so it might be something that, during the first song, us video directors will just everyone check focus, make sure it's good. But once you set it on Wednesday, I don't think it should change between. And then another thing that we're introducing, and Jake kind of teased, was camera exercises. So this this will happen after the time down in the tech lounge going over the multi-view. So the different ones, and the video director will pick these. You can pick one or two depending on what you want to try, and it can also vary on the song. So if there's a lot of kind of fast songs, you can try different ones. So the first one is fast compositions. The video director will cut camera to camera very fast. For example, ready 1, cut 1, ready 3, cut 3, ready 2, cut 2, so on. About 1 to 2 seconds per song based on the song tempo. So if it's a fast song like Glorious Day, doing that, but if it's a slower song like What a Beautiful Name, doing maybe 3 to 5 seconds per cut. Operators will need to get their composition on a shot quickly and plan their next shot, so when they aren't live, they can move to the next shot as fast as possible. They must think fast and think ahead. The video director will also need to think several shots ahead in order to make a coherent story and not just cutting to random shots very quickly. So, not just randomly cutting between cameras, trying to, think about, okay, this camera is giving me this shot. They just moved to that. So, there was just a one shot on Lucy. She's leading the song. I'll cut to the instruments, and then, if this person just gave me a really good 2 shot, I'll cut to them. The next one is creative compositions. Camera operators will get the most interesting shots and compositions they can think of getting, using all the tools and skills they know, like pans, tilts, other things like that. Maybe zoom ins, zoom outs. Just try some things, see what works. The idea of this is to think of, to try to get compositions that are super interesting, out of the box, different. This is to discover interesting shots that we haven't used before and to think outside the standard tight, wide, and 2 shots. Some shots might not be used, but we may find a great composition we never have used. So for example, like thinking about that shot with Josh, the vocalist from camera 3 with that one vocalist, and then Josh in the background, trying to find shots like that. That's like, oh, this is an interesting shot. If this happens again, this is a shot I should think about. The next one is varied compositions. The video director will assign each camera operator a shot, and the camera operator will try to find 2 to 3 varied compositions within that one shot. For example, if camera 2 is on tight shots of the worship leader, trying to find 3 different types of tight shots, like fully tight, chest up, leading room, and so on. This is to get the appearance of having many more cameras than we do, with multiple tight shots as the video director cuts back and forth. As a video director cuts to another camera, find a different composition within your shot for when you go live again. So the idea behind this is just trying to find, variety in your shots when you're assigned to a shot, rather than just staying, on, say a chest up or something like that. Trying some different things out. And the last one is listening for composition. The video director will put the multi-view on the projectors and won't cut in between cameras. As camera operators listen to the song, they will get different shots based on what they hear or see. For example, if camera 1 hears a guitar solo from the guitarist in front of the drums, go and compose a shot on them. If camera 3 hears the same thing but sees camera 1 on the multi-view getting that shot, then continue to another shot that you might be hearing or seeing. The goal is that the camera operators will learn the songs and know where to get shots and when. This will be a freeform exercise where camera operators can move freely, or can freely move from shot to shot with no need to cut to cameras. So for this, I would say for the video directors, it's not just a time to kind of sit and relax. I would say kind of coach the camera operators, through it, and like, if you see them go to a shot, be like, I see, why you went for that shot. This is maybe what I would, how I would frame it up, or would want it framed up if it were a Sunday kind of thing. So that is all that I have. This is being recorded, so if you guys want to review it later, go back through it, watch it at your own pace also. You definitely can. I'll be sending links out as well, like I said, to the Frame.io thing. And like in the email that I sent, this will go on YouTube. We made a production YouTube page, so I'll send a link out to that. Adam and I have kind of been brainstorming on some things maybe we can do with that, and that's where the multi-views will go also. So if you want to review it on YouTube, you can, or even other multi-view things. So yeah, that's all I have. Does anyone have any questions? Any questions? Yes? Know what that standard is? Yeah. Yeah. So standard framing for when we go into those generosity moments or sermon, camera one gets well, stage wide isn't really the right word, but like a head to toe, or actually I think I think it's in the lookbook actually. Let me see. Oh yeah, he did. So this is in the lookbook, but I'll go over it now. So 1 is on a wide head to toe. 2 is on a medium shot, so like from thighs up. Again, you want to get just below kind of the shirt, so that it doesn't look like he's just a floating torso. And then 3 is a medium to wide, so knees up, because we don't want the same shot as 1, so we just having variety in our shots. So that's the standard for generosity moment or sermon. Yeah, we can show you and help you with it. Yeah. Cool. Well, if there's no other questions.